Alright, making a video. Physics and such. Anyway, Ken Wheeler video. So, yeah, I'll get to that in a minute though. I just wanted to do, hasn't been too many good comments, so I haven't done comment videos, but there really haven't been any worth paying attention to. But there was one I wanted to do just quickly. Jason Gunn. Have you watched any of the videos I have posted? Okay, this guy has no subscribers, and he only has one video up, and it's just a couple of quotes from Madame Curie. It says, I always wind up deleting them. After what? Nobody watches them. Very good. After I see how stupid they make me look, and I'm worried about who might watch them that I'm associated with. Well, so what are you doing any of this for? Anyway, regardless, the reason why I ask is because I've speculated you might have watched some of the videos I've posted. There's no evidence you've posted videos, and no evidence that no one ever saw any of the videos. It almost seems it influenced some of your videos you've posted a bit after I've posted some of those videos and then soon deleted. So if you have, you can predate in some sense what I've posted, then why not just make the videos active again? Why would you even delete them? Why wouldn't you just put them in private? Anyway, just sounds like horse shit, fella. And it's really, fuck you. You have no credentials. You put up nothing, and then you make a claim that I've somehow taken your ideas and called them my own? Fuck you. Do that with some evidence. Or fuck you. I mean, that's just scummy. Anyway, so, fuck you. I won't block you, but I mean, put up evidence or go to hell. I mean, there's really, fuck you. I haven't seen any of your videos. No one has seen any of your videos. But anyway, I mean, how would I see your videos? How exactly would I do it? I mean, I could do a search, and you think your videos will come up on the search? Like, what would I have to search to find one of your videos in the past? What did you title your videos? Anyway, on to Ken Wheeler, another asshole. Just an amazing video. Okay, defining magnetism in full, he calls it. They won't defining magnetism as what? As with no description. So it's a definition with no description in it. It's just like titling magnetism, titling it a hyperboloid, titling it a toroid or something, but nothing. And then he has this. The ending is amazing, where he claims he has discovered the secret to whatever, and he, and there's absolutely no evidence he discovered anything real. But anyway, let's just play this shit. The full.
I've been away for 7 days. I'll be back home tomorrow. I've been working hard on the 4th edition of my book, which is not out yet.
Right, so he's been talking about this 4th edition for 40 years. But anyway, whatever. His book is just a convoluted pile of crap. Again, nothing explaining the two major things that you notice about magnets is that they move together really strongly and they move apart really strongly. Nothing in there about that.
Should be out sometime in the middle of the year. I also have a lecture in Idaho in the first week of July.
Yes, he's going to go to a convention of tinfoil hat cookers who are all selling, magic beanstalk beans, and mostly, and so they get, he's getting a paid trip to go there because they figure they'll bring in some people who might buy beanstalk beans.
Most importantly, that my definition be the first time of what magnetism actually is.
So he says it's the first time, yet he always is. His whole book is full of quotes from other people, dead people, and all before, say, 1940. So any knowledge after 1940 is ignored by Ken Wheeler, and it's only pre-1940 information that is somehow valid, and it's not about any experiments actually conducted. It's just what the opinions of these crackheads were. Crackheads in the sense that they were all a bit cracked, like Tesla.
or what defines a magnet, because a magnet is a meaningless term.
It's really not. I mean, it has a whole bunch of meaning. Everybody knows if you're a magnet. You visualize it really easily. You visualize the concepts of magnetism really easily. I mean, it's just bullshit to say it's a meaningless term. It's a term highly well understood by even little kids.
A pre-magnet, before it becomes a magnet, is no different quantitatively.
Quantitatively, so that's supposed to mean something. Yes, okay, by mass it's no different. But by structure, it's fundamentally different in that all of the atoms are lined up, where before they were going in different directions in their domains. Something they know about. Okay, there's physical experiments that demonstrate that there's domains inside of materials, and that these domains are essentially pockets of material that's lined up, creating a bunch of. So there's a bunch of little magnets creating a bigger magnet, and then those domains line up into a bigger magnet and bigger, and that's the essence of magnetism, and that's sort of known fact. And you're disputing with what evidence? What evidence do you have that that's not how magnets work?
And once it becomes a magnet, understanding point source.
Point source has nothing to do with magnetism in a lot of senses, because, frankly, point source only works at a distance. Point source is an idea that when you take two things apart, one of the things gets smaller relative to the other thing, and vice versa. And so they turn into point sources at a distance. But when actually you have them up close with magnets, there's no point source. Magnets, it's, the inverse square law goes away. Why am I looking at the microphone? Sorry. Yes, I'm explaining it to the microphone. Point source doesn't mean anything. That point source is what everything looks like at a distance, and it only looks that way.
Understanding field coherency, understanding that there's no such thing as magnetic polarity.
Okay, no such thing as magnetic polarity. When it couldn't be more obvious, the north-south difference. It couldn't be more demonstrated in experiments, the difference. The two north poles put next to each other, they repel very strongly, and then south to north they attract very strongly. The difference couldn't be more obvious, and yet he's claiming there's no such thing.
Understanding that there's no such thing as magnetic quote-unquote attraction.
Yes, well, he's correct in the sense that they don't attract. That's right. It's just an absence of pressure, and so the external pressure pushes them together. So if you want to know how strong the external pressure is, get your strongest magnets, and you'll see how strong the pressure can become, and just multiply that maybe by 100, and you might get some idea of the real pressure that exists. But yes, we're under a lot of pressure, and the only thing that makes the pressure go away is that we have a lot of internal pressure pushing back out. But yes, there is no attraction. But we believe that statement for different reasons, no doubt.
Sir, absurdities of miscomprehension on every side.
It's not miscomprehension in the sense you could say they've made a logical error, or you could argue that they've made a factual error. But miscomprehension isn't really an appropriate description of the problem. They've either miscalculated in terms of doing the addition, or they've put the wrong functions in their wrong assumptions would be a better word.
Of every magnet, as we call it, we have centrifugal divergence and centripetal convergence.
Yes, which means absolutely nothing. So he's just saying there's swirly bits going this way at the top and swirly bits going this way at the bottom, blah, blah, blah. And then there's roundy herpyburloids.
This is not only viewable underneath the ferro.
It isn't viewable at all. There's no motion at all under the ferrocell. We see no activity whatsoever. All we see is where light is being reflected off the little bits of material that are in the suspension, and that those bits are essentially creating little diffraction gradients, because the little tiny bits don't really stick to each other. When you look at it under a microscope, you can see that there's gaps between them created by the oil. So the magnets don't really the oil creates repulsion, so the magnet bits don't even stick to each other. They just line up with each other. And they create a bunch of little slit experiments, and that's what's causing all the diffusion in the light, and that's what's giving the 3D effect. But it's an optical effect. It's not reality you're viewing. That's why you're viewing it through a complex device, is because, not because that's how you see reality, is to put on clear glasses. If you want to see reality, you need clear glasses. You put glasses with oil in them and little magnetic bits, then you're not going to see clear reality. You're going to see a distortion of reality, and that's what the ferrocell provides, is a distortion of reality.
Cell is easily demonstrable with...
And it's not demonstrable that there's any movement whatsoever. There's no convergence or swervergence or any other vergence going on, no evidence of movement at all. So it's totally deceptive.
Any magnetometer.
No, magnetometer demonstrates no movement at all. Just the alignment of the magnets, the bipolar magnets. Okay, they're not monopoles, they're bipoles. That means they have to line up with the magnetic fields, both positive and negative, both electron and proton, you could argue. But regardless, they have to line up with both fields. They're not monopoles. If you had a monopole, then you could do a real test. But you can't do a real test with a dipole.
The conjugate geometry of force and motion, inertia and acceleration, capacitance, resistance.
All that mush has nothing, again. What does that mean to somebody? All that is just jargon. There's no evidence of any of that. There's no showing of it. There's no demonstration of any of this stuff. No picture of this inertia and acceleration and motion and blah, blah, blah.
Magnetic permeability and dielectric permittivity.
Yeah, none of that's explained either. This whole permittivity thing gets you in big trouble anyway, because then you have to have variable speeds to light, and then you say, what's the permittivity of the vacuum? And as soon as you give it a permittivity, then what let Ken Wheeler explain how if I throw this magnifying glass into outer space, that it'll keep traveling all the way to Venus. If I want to go all the way to Venus, I can get it there. Why don't you explain how it can keep moving if it's being blocked by permittivity? Any permittivity at all means it'd have to slow down.
Is the simplex expression of this conjugate...
There's nothing simple about what he just said. It's just jargon, jargon, jargon.
Field geometry of the dielectric and the magnetic.
There is no dielectric as a force or a something. There's just dielectric as a description of a type of insulator.
That defines the most fundamental apex.
There's nothing fundamental about what he's talking about, and it's the apex of nothing. It's certainly not the peak of simplicity or elemental description. This is nothing like an elemental description of anything. It's jargon.
Of everything that the cosmos is built upon.
Right, of everything the cosmos is built upon. Permittivity and swirlativity and none of this garbage has anything to do with what we actually physically see happen in the universe.
Nothing that I've said in my book, be it the first, second, third, or fourth edition, runs contrary to established facts.
Yeah, it does. The established fact is there's no evidence you can bend light. So your claims that you can is nonsense with magnetism. There's no evidence of any variable speed to light, so that's rubbish. No one's arguing that light speeds up when it leaves glass and all that kind of stuff. That's all, again, misparaphrasing what physicists actually say or what physicists actually believe. So, you have to lie to say there's nothing inconsistent, because your entire theory is fundamentally inconsistent with the evidence.
Of field theory, as expressed by Tesla, Faraday, Steinmetz.
So that's the condition. So as expressed by people who died before 1950. People archaic, people who, were still working on steam engines. Their knowledge is the knowledge base he goes with, is the conclusions of people who didn't have all of what modern science has achieved. before Sputnik. Just think, before Sputnik, a satellite that just went beep, 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 beep. He thinks that's the good knowledge, before Sputnik.
Oliver Heaviside, James Clerk Maxwell, none of these people and their writings, however, their comprehension, the descriptions of things, one thing, explanation of another.
Yeah, it's description and explanation, that's right. So you can say what you see, and then you can say, well, what could cause it? And so, yes, you can obviously get the causes all wrong. And modern physics has done a lot of that, but archaic physics did a hell of a lot of it too. And it's just the difference between scientists who step way beyond their capacity to draw conclusions. So Ken Wheeler is saying because Maxwell believed there was an ether, even though he didn't ever claim he had evidence to support it, right? He wasn't making an assertion that there is an ether. He was making an assertion that he thinks there is. He didn't write in his book, I have proof there's an ether. All right, so again, he's implying that Maxwell said more than he actually did say, just as you couldn't argue that Newton said there were angels. Even though Newton believed there were angels, he didn't say it. He didn't assert the argument in a scientific book explaining angels and why they exist. So he didn't make it as an assertion. So again, he's claiming these people all asserted something when they never asserted it. Now, Tesla asserted lots of stuff, and obviously Tesla was wrong about a lot of stuff.
You can actually have the correct math for something that is also repeatable and expressible, but that does not mean that the explanation for saying is accurate. The Egyptians...
Yes, but again, you have to demonstrate, if you're going to claim as a blanket flaw, I mean, there's got to be a fallacy in here somewhere. I'm not going to be specific at all and just say because, you know, one Vulcan was a poop head, then all Vulcans are poop heads. I mean, you know, you're just being too preposterously lazy. So you should actually point out where you think these flaws exist.
Of course, we're famous for having extremely accurate math and being able to do things that we ourselves cannot do. But
so again, he's making this vague claim that we can't do these things now when we have actually accomplished it. Most of all these things we can do now. We can figure out how it was done. We can dissect it. Obviously, you could be given, let's say we were all ignorant of the game of chess, and somebody gave you just the pieces in the board. Now, you wouldn't know how the pieces exactly were lined up, so you might trial and error a lot of different pawns in front, pawns in behind, mixed pawns with kings, kings over here, that's over there. You know, it might take you a while before you can figure out, oh, that's how they did it. But you would certainly know there was an arrangement, and that's all you're really searching for. So much of the stuff we don't know doesn't mean that we can't duplicate the byproduct, the product of their experiments. It's that we can't duplicate the exact process because there's an order to it, and we, you know, by trial and error, it could take a lot of trials and errors before you're going to come up with the exact sequence at which they did what they did. But this notion that it's far advanced super science, they didn't have any of that. And so this is just more bullshit. I mean, these canards of the truther. You're just pointing right to yourself as it being just a truther. This notion that there was special knowledge of special things and special capacities. None of that's true. They had no fucking magic.
Explanations, of course, were pure absurdities. The ability to reproduce...
So their explanations are absurdities, yet somehow he's saying they had the right answers. Does that make any sense? They had the right answers, but their explanations were absurd. It sounds like rubbish.
Something, and to express something in discovery and repeat it is not in any way lay claim to the ability to have a correct explanation.
Well, I mean, repeating an experiment is very good. So if you can do that, then you've at least established that the chain of process leads to this consistency, that, you know, consistency is a valuable thing when it comes to evidence. So if you can have a consistent result, that'll tell you something. Now, if it's a very complex experiment that has lots of assumptions built into it, well, then repeating doesn't mean anything regarding drawing conclusions about what's actually happening. And if you ignore the fact that a single plain piece of glass is a perfect beam splitter, And then you ask the reasonable question, well, why would you need to put mirror on it if it already does 50-50 by just holding it at a 45-degree angle? It already does 50-50 beam splitting. Why would I need to put mirror on it? Yeah, see, if you don't ask those questions, well, then you'll have the wrong answers. Okay, so when you find something that doesn't fit, okay, then you have to fix it. You have to explain why it's not fitting.
Of that thing. Specifically, so I'm have the syllabus ready for my lecture, and the hard part is taking hundreds and hundreds of pages of notes, literally from my
So he needs a syllabus for a lecture. I mean, lectures really aren't, you don't sit there and provide a syllabus for your lectures usually, but whatever. You know, you're supposed to be writing an explanation that you're going to perform. It's performance art, and you're going to perform and demonstrate. You know, I guess you're just going to be really boring and just talk too much. Say syllabus and shit. Conversion magnitude of the syllabus.
4th edition. Of course, there'll have to be 6 editions.
I don't know why it would be 6. So the 4th edition won't be it. The video says defining magnetism in full. So, you know, wait. So the 4th edition still isn't full enough. You'll need a couple more editions before you're near to full. I mean, you just don't know how to use vocabulary correctly at all, do you? It's just all hype.
Ultimately, and defining what is this convergent and divergent constructive and destructive interference between the centrifugal divergence and the centripetal convergence.
Right, so he's saying now there's interference, and that somehow has something to do with this phenomenon of the two magnets moving to each other or away from each other. Somehow has to do with some sort of interference between a converging, spinning one way, counterclockwise versus clockwise spin, or some kind of crap like that, going in versus the part going out. Somehow that makes magnets fly into each other with a strength, a substantial strength.
Of the dielectric and the magnetic, this defining what is magnetism specifically, since it is the dielectric field.
It isn't any. There's no such thing as a dielectric field. There's a dielectric that you can put between capaciting plates, okay, that acts as an insulator in the sense that it can become charged, but it doesn't transmit charge through it. So it's a dielectric in the sense that it can have charge on either side, but the charge doesn't go through the medium. So it's an insulator, but it's an insulator that can hold charge on its surfaces. There's no dielectric anything else.
Being able to explain the conjugate vortex of the hyperboloid and the toroidal magnetic and dielectric, and understanding how...
Right, and all that is simple, he says. This is simple. It doesn't sound simple, and it doesn't sound anything like why things repel. Why the two magnets fly apart aggressively. Aggressively fly apart.
They interplay between each other to form the conjugate geometry that is the basis for everything from
Yes, conjugate geometry, which doesn't again say anything. What does that mean? Like it's, you know, ordered geometry, conjugate? What exactly are you trying to imply? What is a conjugate geometry? Oh, that's right, it's jargon. Useless jargon.
Macro to micro. I have defined all these things. I noticed too that my discovery from a few years ago...
Define them by saying the conjugate geometry is a syllabus of the inverted hyperboloid, and the hyperboloid is an inverted conjugate of the magnitude of the syllabus. I mean, you're just describing jargon with jargon, with jargon, with jargon, with jargon, with jargon, and you never talk about anything in the real fucking world and how it really works. Nothing mechanical or sensible or reasonable or rational. Just fucking jargon.
Yeah, we always knew that birds navigated via magnetism, but it was never known. Birds cannot see.
So again, he says it was never known. Well, they did experiments back in the 50s, okay, with pigeons, and they figured out they weren't seeing it, okay? They were sensing it some other way. So, I mean, this is all sort of bullshit. And they've actually now, in the modern last 10 years, they've been able to find the little bits of magnetite inside their brains, and that we actually have them inside our neurons, little bits of magnetite, left over from our bacterial days, no doubt. But these are real things, and in certain animals, those things are part of what the neuron is detecting, and it detects where it's moving, and well, mostly it's detecting the up and down part, which is kind of the irony of it. The north side tilts down. Okay, it's not so much the direction, it's the downward part is what it's really detecting. And so the more down, the closer you are to the pole, so to speak.
Magnetism. That's absolutely impossible. We knew that they navigated from migration and other things via magnetism, but it was my discovery that there is a phase conjugate between polarity and magnetism that causes a phase disparity in the light between the North Pole and the South Pole.
So it says he claims he discovered something. It's not written in any of the literature anywhere in physics. He's proven it with no evidence. There's absolutely no theory that this has any viability at all, that there's any such thing as a magnetic red shift or a magnetic blue shift. This is just a preposterous piece of bravado, this insanity. He's claiming I proved something, and there's absolutely not one shred of evidence that any of this is what actually happens, and there's a huge volume of evidence that no, there's magnetite in the brains of birds. This has nothing to do with them seeing blue or seeing red.
Birds do not navigate directly via magnetism. They navigate indirectly due to the phase.
Everything is indirect by some reductionism. You can make everything indirect, but clearly it's a kind of direct when you have an actual magnet in your brain. That's sort of a direct connection.
That actually interferes by shifting the light, kind of like red shift and blue shift, except that occurs here on Earth due to magnetic polarity of the Earth.
Right. There's absolutely no evidence that this happens. So again, where's one shred of evidence that there's any such thing as photons being shifted by the magnetic field? The only place they can ever find this, the only thing you can do is change the polarization of light with magnetism inside a medium, though. The medium is actually changing the electrons, and then when you change the electrons, you change the polarity of the light. But there's no evidence that you can change the shift, the frequency of light with magnetism. No evidence. Just making this shit up.
And this is how this is how birds navigate via magnetism.
Again, this is just a bizarre claim when there's real solid microscopic evidence of the little magnets inside of their brain. It's inside of bacteria, inside of lots of things. They found the little bits of magnetite inside their brains. This is just bullshit. This argument is preposterously ludicrous.
But not directly. Nobody can see magnetism. We have cryptochromes in our eyes as human beings, and so do...
Yeah, again, the idea of seeing magnetism is like seeing gravity. That's right. You can't see things that aren't at a frequency, and so we don't see anything but some of the electromagnetic spectrum and just a little tiny bit of it, because we have eyes sensitive to that. But we can detect others. We can certainly detect, X-rays, and we can detect all kinds of different stuff. But yes, we can't optically or in any kind of way do that for magnetism. And well, they do. They have magnetic resonance. So I mean, you do have some capacity to use magnetism to see.
Birds, but that does not mean they actually see magnetism, but rather how they navigate.
Again, since the 50s, they already knew this wasn't about what birds see, it's about what birds feel. So, at least pigeons, especially, other migratory birds likewise, it's not about what they see, it's about what they feel.
Using it indirectly, and all these things, of course, since the entire universe is magnetism and dielectric, as countless real-world applications for understanding our universe.
Okay, countless, and he'll never come up with any of these countless anythings. He made a video a few months ago promising some new innovation in motors. It was going to be a huge innovation, change the world, blah, blah, blah. Nothing ever came of it. You know, it's full of big, bold talk, little tiny nothing as evidence. Little tiny silly bits of crap as evidence.
In our natural world, but that is my discovery. Well, of course, it's been known for...
It's his discovery, and it's not known to be his discovery by anyone except him and his claim. He's given it credibility by having no test. He hasn't offered this theory to anyone to say disprove it, you know, because he doesn't have any evidence of it. He's just making it up.
I think about 25 years that birds navigated via magnetism. We did not know...
It's more than 25 years. It's more like 75 years. But whatever.
How that was done. But that was my discovery, since they cannot navigate directly via magnetism.
Okay, well, like I said, this is already a known fact, so I'm just saying it's just known that bacteria use magnetite, that the birds use magnetite. It's already a known fact. Now, you want to say some special species of bird doesn't use that mechanism, that it's some other mechanism, well, go ahead and do that, but cite it. And you're not citing anything.
Magnetism, so... I hope the lecture to be full and complete. That will define both what a magnet is.
Full and complete, full of crap and full of distortions and full of nonsense that nobody ever saw. He'll argue straw men, you know, where physicists never are said what he says they say, and he'll claim to have proven something he hasn't provided shred of one of evidence for, and he'll distort whatever little things there are, like he'll put a magnet in front of a CRT screen and he'll claim to be ignorant of the fact that there's a big metal plate in front of that screen, all right, that's going to end up creating eddy currents, that's going to end up creating a magnetic field of its own, that's going to change the path of the electrons coming towards it, because it's the anode, it's the actual thing attracting the electrons, and you're going to give it a charge, a magnetic charge. He's just so full of shit. An additional charge, let's put it that way. He won't talk any facts. He'll just do distortions and make bold claims for which he has no physical evidence.
What magnetism is specifically, and how the conjugate interplay between centrifugal divergence and centripetal...
And I mean by evidence, he won't show how this centripetal anything connects to a single thing, like iron filings on a piece of paper, how it connects to any experiment that's really been done, physics over and over again. He won't connect any dots at all.
Convergence actually mediates itself out, since everything is pressure mediation. This is a...
Yes, well, pressure mediation is a good concept. I would argue that yes, everything is pressure mediation, so he is correct. But the pressure isn't swirling and dirling and doing all this spinning and winning and all this whining and binding. No, the pressure is in the form of rays of force, just like rays of photons, and that's really the pressure. The pressure isn't any spinning, waving bullshit.
Very simple. Charge and discharge. There's no such thing as a negative charge, for example.
So charge, it's so simple, charge and discharge. Well, there's no such thing as a negative charge. There's no such thing as a negative charge, and there's no such thing as a positive charge, frankly. I mean, that's just, again, silly.
I think that there's such thing as magnetic attraction or magnetic repulsion.
So he said both words this time, right? So, I mean, last time I cut him a break because he said there's no such thing as magnetic attraction. And clearly, repulsion is a real force. Clearly, electrons repel each other because there ends up being more force. As you bring them together, they're reflecting a force off of each other. And that's why they can't be pushed too close together without creating intense amounts of energy. And the same is true of the protons. The proton force is trapped between them. You bring them closer together, there's more little hits, more pressure. That's how the system works. Okay, so for him to say there's no such thing as repulsion, now he's discredited his there's no such thing as attraction line, because now clearly he doesn't think there's any forces. It's silly.
There's an absurdity to think that a magnet actually has poles. It actually has a, quote, North Pole and a South Pole.
Yes, it has a two distinctly different ends, in the sense that the atoms are obviously aligned different in the two ends of the magnet, in the sense of they're all pointing in one direction, and so it's all bald heads in one direction and all flabby asses pointing down the other direction, to use a Ken Wheeler metaphor. So it's all bald-headedness. When you look down from the top, it's all bald-headedness. You look down up from the bottom, it's all flabby asses. Quite different. They're all doing the same little thing, you know. But I mean, the end picture is the same as the macro picture. The little thing, the little Ken Wheeler, is the same as a billion little Ken Wheelers. It ends up being the same thing. It's all flabby asses from the bottom and all bald heads from the top, no matter how many of them there are.
Will be dismissed and explained with something far, far more logical. And
yeah, so, and this is his full explanation. And like all his explanations, it says absolutely nothing, explains nothing. The most fundamental properties of magnets is the fact that they do smash together very aggressively and they do repel very strongly. And he will never talk about those fundamental functions of magnets, or the function of in a magnet creating electric flow inside of a conductor. He will not speak of any of these things. He'll just talk about these imaginary forces, this imaginary energy swirling about. This is going this way, and this is going this way, and this is doing this, and this is in the ether's all bubbly and swirly. Yet there's absolutely no evidence of this ether bubbling and swirling.
intelligible and intelligent, to say the least. So, anyway.
And, if intelligent is a carnival barker, I mean, yes, is intelligence like a scheming and a conniver and a bullshitter? You're a fucking used car salesman, Ken. You were probably a used camera salesman, right? And you're never really a photographer. You were just a hawker, just somebody selling crap. That's all you've done your whole life, probably. Is just sold shit, lies and bullshit to weasel people out of their money.
Back to it, I can continue writing. Out here right now, the mosquitoes are biting my ass because this is South Florida.
Oh, good. I mean, you deserve probably a little worse than just a few mosquito bites, actually. Because you are just a fucking liar. And a chicken. A despicable coward who will not allow himself to be challenged by somebody who might, you know, be able to point out very easily that you're just selling shit.
Yes, and everything down here hops on
Bullshit.
you, jumps on you, or bites your ass and sucks your blood. Greetings. I can't wait to get back. Bye.
Yes. Anyway. Alright, so enough. But, yeah, what a shyster. I mean, it's just pathetic, this video. Pathetic claims. I figured something out that, I mean, I don't know. He doesn't pay any attention or something? How could he be making these arguments when physics, again, already has explained a lot of this bird navigation thing? You know, not a surprise at all, really. So anyway, I think that's enough. I'll declare it so. Alright, so till the next time and such, so forth and whatnot.